want to just show up and speak today. There can be a lot of challenging thoughts and feelings that might delay such an act that has been occurring, I assure you. And yet here I am. But what really I want to talk about, there's so many things. I want to talk about the importance of mind in spiritual development. I think that a lot of the time, I've heard in a lot of places people will say you need to get out of your mind, and that your mind lies to you, and that your ego is the problem a lot of the time. The ego's attached to the mind, right? The thing is that you can actually view the mind as the avenue that you travel through to reach greater spiritual awareness and greater embodiment. It's the mind that actually, when we open it and resonate it in certain ways, can actually allow our more etheric spiritual bodies to align into our physical body so we can be more embodied. One notion that I've picked up from spiritual communities, I'm not blaming them. This notion is resonating with something that I hold inside myself, and so that's why it's challenging for me when I encounter it. One notion is this idea of like, oh, these are just your thoughts about spirituality. You should let those go. You shouldn't hold on to those. Because that's like clinging on to something. You shouldn't do that. You should let it go and just open your mind and just notice, which is great, which is a great practice. But I think a lot of people who are into this might resonate with this feeling that I've struggled with, where it can become something that holds me back. Like if I have this strong feeling that I have this thought, it feels important to my development to share this thought and to share my certain kinds of my thoughts. It feels very important to me to share this. Whether or not it's the ultimate thing for me to do or the best thing for me to do, I can't really move past this feeling that it's really important to me to share this. And then I'll have this counter thought where I think that wanting to share something is actually moving away from being spiritually embodied, because I would be clinging to this thought, if that makes sense. I want to share about my process, this process that I've been going through to create these videos, this process inside my mind and heart that I've been going through to reach a place where I can actually record these videos, because I keep running up into getting this idea, feeling good about it, putting together a really solid prep for it, having potentially, in some cases, a script, or in some cases, practicing saying things more fluidly, intuitively as they come up, and practicing that and having structure for that, and preparing, and then I go to do the thing, and I just freeze. And I think that there's so many reasons for that. That is a natural way to respond in any case, but I think there are also layers of the we've internalized so much as spiritual people a lot of the time. I don't want to generalize, and if someone hasn't internalized this, it's, I think, probably good. Like, we internalize a lot that I shouldn't want to share my ideas. And I am speaking, I am speaking about ideas. They're practices. Ideas form practices. Ideas form connections, communities, and they form actions. But ideas can also just be ideas. And I think it's the more purely someone isolates out the idea in itself, I feel, the more there can be a counteracting notion against that, a counteracting notion that's basically saying you shouldn't just think. There's some sort of like current and within spirituality, like a stream that really seems to be against ideas, and it feels weird saying it so plainly because it doesn't really make sense to me right now. But there's this, I think it's because our ideas are so related to our ego, and so people will think that if you want to share your ideas, it means that you're like too proud, and that you're like on an ego trip. Why I'm trying to think of what else it is. There's something about a sense of humility. There's a notion of because the ego is considered negative, people want to take away a sense of ownership of ideas. They want to distance their ego from ideas. And that, you can follow why that, if you follow along the sort of logic that's producing that, you can understand why people have that feeling. And it's sort of a fine line to walk. People we all have, I'm sure, seen people who are very proud of their minds, and it seems unhealthy. Just keeping an eye on my screens here. This is not my stream. I am in the process of streamlining my filming. But I think, like, I notice with people channeling, there's a kind of a trophy around saying this isn't mine. Like, someone could create something and say, oh, but it's not mine. It belongs to this exalted being. Like, this came from this exalted being. And that could quite well be true. Like, sometimes it really is the case where we do just channel chunks of information from higher level consciousness, and it barely even filtered through our minds, but still our minds had to be able to. Our minds still were involved in that, and it is still sort of yours too, That's like the co-creating thing. Like the notion of co-creating. And I think that, I don't know, I don't have like studies or evidence to back this up, aside from just a feeling that I have, but I feel like this notion is targeted towards women more. So if a woman has ideas, then they're just fanciful ideas. They're silly, they're emotional, they're just like, it's easy to ridicule them. And I think that this is a notion that's applied in some contexts. It's applied pretty universally, but it's just something that in my case I've run up into as a woman, where I feel like when I've shared my ideas, some men have dismissed them, I feel, more readily and more thoroughly because of my gender. And it feels like almost too many ideas to share right now. And what I've been realizing is that I need to share them pretty immediately. I need to share them pretty immediately as they come up for me. So, because I've had this feeling of hoarding them, like a paranoid squirrel, like collecting all these acorns of ideas and burying them in notes that I've come to peace with, recognizing that I'm probably not going to go back through those notes. It's okay. Recording the notes was part of the process. But it's felt like if I just collect them for myself, then I'll know what to do with them later. But it's just reached a point where there are too many of them. What I really need to be doing is just sharing them, instead of having to wrap them up in a perfect package that fits perfectly into, the structures that people advise you to follow and to create when you're creating and sharing ideas online. And I think the reason why I haven't been sharing them is because it's fucking terrifying to me. It's really hard. It's really hard. And I think that it's been manifesting, like that fear's been manifesting pretty physically for me, when very recently I've reached the point where I know that I just must start. I must start. And I think that what's been happening is that the fear is manifesting very physically and blocking my mental flow when I'm trying to produce, when I'm trying to speak specifically, and I just get dysregulated so fast, and I might dissociate depending on the context, but here and there I've dissociated. I think mostly I've just gotten dysregulated and really frustrated, and it's manifested in wondering if I have the skills and ability to speak. I've always felt like my patterns of how I express myself are not as typical as what's are not typical. And I've started to worry that maybe I'm just not cut out for this, and for this aspect of communication. I started to get really frustrated because it really feels like speaking is it'll help me connect with people in a way deeper than writing, and find people in a way deeper than more effective than my writing. So I guess rather than recording, I have all sorts of things planned, but before recording those better, because I have recorded them. I've recorded them in bits and pieces here and there, right? But then just not felt right about any of it, which, So I'm creating this video is essentially for people who are along this path with me, and who are also working through what it means to speak publicly about spirituality and your own personal ideas that you've developed from personal experience, and sharing about that. And I think the big challenge for me around this is that I want to present these ideas with confidence, because I think it gives the idea the credit that it deserves. I think that by presenting ideas confidently, that gives them the full support that they deserve in order to be fully put out into the world. And then other people benefit from that confidence by having the opportunity to take in this full idea that's been fully presented, and then they can filter that into their own understanding of the world. And if I apologize and put conditionals around every single thing that I have to say, then I'm not going to just be presenting the thing. I'm going to be fragmenting it. So it can feel strange having doubt in myself, having an atmosphere, an environment of doubt around something still within myself, and then knowing that sharing these things, especially confidently, feels dangerous. Talking about spirit, saying with confidence that I know that it's real, that there are like etheric realms, and that our bodies are more than physical bodies, that they're energetic, that we have soul and we have spirit and all this stuff, and that I'm psychic, that that I talk to beings. And saying that with confidence on the internet, just really anywhere, but it's just that there's so many more eyes on this on the internet. It's a lot, and I know that the people who are also working through this understand this. And I guess my first video is just a little talk about this. I started recording this about ideas, so I started recording this by talking about ideas. Our ideas, so in I've been reading Rudolf Steiner lately. I read Theosophy and his book Theosophy, and I'm working through the book How to Know Higher Worlds. And I think it's in the book Theosophy, when he talks about spirit, he talks about mind, and he talks about how some people don't want mind to rule their experience because they're worried it'll take away their emotions, which is interesting. I haven't experienced that because I'm very much mind down, which I'm working on. I'm actively working on this, so that's why my first series that I'm going to be discussing on here is grounding into divine orientation. And some people have seemed a little confused why I'm not talking about the connection with the soul star when I talk about the column, that I'm just talking about the earth. But the thing is that I need to focus on the earth part more. So that's what we're doing there, because the earth it's just pretty cool. The earth has specific ways that she could help us. And it's pretty cool to study that. It's pretty cool. But the thing is that I have very much mind, but like I have a very much mind-oriented experience and identity, really. And I'm working on balancing that out with the physical. I'm also very emotional, but the physical. And in this book, Theosophy, he talks about how people can resist this. People, for various reasons. You know, there are whole teachings against the mind, and I have a different perspective on that. I'll try to talk about it at some point. Zen, like I think that Zen is just different. Like I think you can think about it a little differently, and this all still lines up. But the mind is actually spirit. It's actually our spirit. And that is what we use in order to connect with spirit, is our mind. And it's just that our mind needs to be entrained into certain patterns of truth, of spiritual universal truth, in order to connect. In order to connect on a higher level, on the healthiest level that's possible. And so, in that way, having and sharing ideas is precious. It's precious. The quality of the idea is really important. And what I'm sharing is the product of my efforts to understand stuff. So it's just, my sharing is essentially an effort to find community around these ideas, because especially I want to focus on ideas that are they're already there. These ideas already are everywhere. It's just that when we hear people, we all have unique experiences. So we all see these same ideas that are everywhere. We all see them differently. And when we really pay attention to them, then when we filter that through our own experience, we can all develop unique teachings that can help different people who resonate with different unique teachings to come to I want to say, nourish, to flesh out, to augment their own experience, to bring new perspective to their own experience. And then through that allows people to iterate. I like using that word, to iterate back around and to apply that to their experience again. And so by sharing these ideas that already exist and are already talked about, and by sharing them, by highlighting different aspects of them and different ways that they can be applied, that's precious. That's precious. And that's what I'm endeavoring to do. And I just wanted to share. Okay. This isn't gonna be I had just been telling my brother that when I'm thinking about how I want to show up on YouTube, I want to be succinct, and I do not want to apologize about my videos or make little comments about little details about my videos that like most people wouldn't even notice otherwise, which I notice some people do, which I understand. I thought that I'm saying that because I'm about to say that I was I was planning on editing all of these, but I don't know how to edit this. I don't even, I'm just not going to edit this. So okay, I'm just going to center. I just want to speak with the other souls who are looking for these things with me, and I want to share the ideas that I've had, because they might be helpful. They might be helpful, and they because they're reminders. They're just reminders, and that, like, my goal is to help connect ideas. So to connect, to bring in, you know, like, I'm talking about things that are just, I'm talking about things that people know about, that they're everywhere. You know, these ideas are everywhere. I want to bring in connections that some people might want to follow, because these are the connections that have enriched my studies. So I want to connect ideas, and I want also to talk about their applications, which is pretty exciting. So I guess in this case, I am embodying the application. I'm embodying the application of this idea about ideas, how thoughts are actually precious spiritually. I think that's part of why there's so many spiritual teachings about thoughts, you know, and about letting thoughts go, etc., transforming the mind, opening the mind. I think that a lot of the teachings that tell you not to think or something. I mean, it's not even like they tell you not to think, but some of you might know what I mean, what I'm talking about. But it's like, it's more about, like, opening the mind so that the mind can align with more spiritually potent and true ideas. And so the reasons why there are so many teachings about the mind, which could lead someone to think that the mind is like sludge to clear off. It depends on how you use the mind. It's because the mind is precious. The mind is so precious. And the more spiritually aligned thoughts, the more true thoughts are probably going to seem so different from a lot of the thoughts we think on a daily basis that it could really translate into, you know, clearing the thoughts altogether. It could seem like we're getting rid of our minds as we know it in order to align our minds with higher truth. So I'm just showing up to talk about it. I'm just showing up to share about these ideas. And I want to advocate for people advocating for their ideas. I want to invite in my heart for there to be a spiritual cultural sense of wealth and respect for and around really pursuing quality thinking. And I want people who have ideas and who really know in their hearts that it's very important to them that they share these ideas, and that they feel like they might just not be able to move on yet until they share the ideas. I want us to share our ideas. Even when you just have to make a video like this instead of waiting to find a tripod and to figure out how to use the fancy camera and to have so much pressure on how you look on the video, and to not sure if the microphone's placed properly, and then to also know that you didn't want to be someone who would comment on the quality of your videos and worrying about editing and yeah, it's... I also just have to, like, I do have different patterns of communication than a lot of people. And I notice that when I talk, when I make recordings like this, when I have tried to make recordings like this, and when I'll often kind of start, and then I get sort of excited, and I maybe run with some ideas, and it feels really good. And then towards the end, I feel a lot better than in the beginning, and I suppose, like, some people would tell me that I could just use the beginning as a warm-up and edit it out, but I also just, I don't really understand why everything has to be so edited. I want to respect people's time. I want this to be accessible to people with, not that much time, but also I just don't understand it. I don't understand why there's such an emphasis on editing. I'm also not asking for people to explain it to me. Just to clarify that, I'm just expressing that I feel, I don't know. I guess it's interesting for someone who feels maybe if it's like different from what's, like maybe a bit different. There can be a lot of extra thoughts around making things like this, because in addition to just thinking like, oh, I need to do this, this, and that, because that's what you do to make a video, I also have thoughts about everything, like, but this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why I have to do this, but then if I don't do it, then what'll happen? And how do I be authentic to myself if I don't feel like this is authentic? And I also do think that other forms of video making and editing will be authentic to me, but it's just too much for me to do right now, given how difficult it is, how difficult it feels to speak, and there's so much, like, having so much pressure around making it of a certain quality in the beginning, having it be of a certain quality, like applying that to the beginning with feeling like I'm struggling to speak, and then like trying to record takes and then just freezing essentially, and then just feeling like I have nothing to work with, or it's, I don't know, I want to call in I want to call in people who resonate with this and just show up for you. So yeah, this is my first video. Okay.